All right, everyone, welcome back to Unit 10, the Early Middle Ages, or the Dark Ages, or Medieval Times, whatever you prefer, they're all the same. So imagine, the Roman Empire is defeated by barbarians, and all that's left is ruins. All the greatness of the Roman Empire gone. The Roman Empire was such an advanced civilization, and they had so many things, but the main thing we need to focus on is the protection. But looking here, this is some footage from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where you play as a character from the Viking Age. But what you're looking at, this is Londinium, or London, and that's the ruins of their amphitheater. These are all Roman ruins you're looking at, but the Romans are long gone, and all that's left are a group of people who don't have the knowledge to recreate the concrete, the architecture, etc. So they're using these dwellings, the stone, the concrete, for their own purposes the best that they can. When I think of the Middle Ages, I like to think of a zombie apocalypse. I mean, who doesn't like a zombie apocalypse, right? You know, you have the TV shows now, The Last of Us, and then previously you had The Walking Dead. So imagine today in modern times, if we had a zombie apocalypse. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but if we did, the military, the police, all of the protection that we have is gone. And then we wouldn't have architects necessarily, or engineers, or nuclear physicists to rebuild our society. We would have to make do, and we would have to use what's there in the best way that we could, similar to how the Vikings and other groups of invaders and these barbarians, they use the leftovers from the Roman Empire. Now, the word barbarian means they don't speak Latin, and we think of it as these crazy, wild fighting guys, and it's kind of the same thing. But again, as you're looking at this clip here, look at the ruins. That's the Thames River in England, and London specifically. And you see how magnificent it could have been during the Roman times, but now no one's taking care of it. So this map is showing the high point of the Roman Empire. So you can see the Crazy Duck. Basically, the Roman Empire surrounds the Crazy Duck, goes all the way past Egypt, all the way past the Black Sea, up into England, Spain, North Africa. Just absolutely huge. So as the saying goes, Rome wasn't defeated in a day. It took time. It took a long time, actually. It's almost like death by 1,000 cuts. Literally, the barbarians are coming from Germania, or Germany. That's why they're called the Germanic tribes, which we learned about earlier. They're basically picking at the Romans a little bit at a time, over a long period of time. And over this time period, it weakens the Romans gradually. Ultimately, as you learned previously, the Romans are defeated, but over a period of time, by these Germanic tribes, eventually dividing into the Eastern and Western Roman Empire. So let's begin with the foundations of early medieval society. First, you have the classical heritage of Rome, because there are some people who remembered Rome, what it was like, particularly people associated with the church who could read. But we also have Christian beliefs, because if you remember, when Constantine became emperor, they converted to Christianity. So the Roman Empire was a Christian empire at that point. But also the invading Germanic tribes, they have their own customs. So medieval society is a blending of all of these: classical heritage of Rome, Christian beliefs, and the customs of the Germanic tribes. It's a mixture. It's like a melting pot, similar to what we have here in America. And as you can see, the Crazy Duck is there to the left to give you a little bit of information. Medieval, Middle Ages, and Dark Ages are generally used to represent the same time period, between 500 AD to 1000 AD. This is also called the Early Middle Ages. So some of you might not like the next couple of images coming up, but hey, we got to do it. So first, these are locations you need to know. When we're talking about Scandinavia, first and foremost, we're talking about the Vikings. They're an invader group. So the Vikings are from modern-day Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. And what happens is they migrate into England, among other places. We'll talk about all of them later. But I need you to look at this image. You can see it laying over top of the Roman Empire. You can see Scandinavia up at the top, and I have a bigger zoomed in version to show you a little bit up closer what it looks like. So Scandinavia, it's above Germany, and again, these Vikings are going to invade England. Not only did the Vikings go to England, but they also went to Iceland, they went to Russia, and they went to North America. So that's something pretty cool. Everyone gives Christopher Columbus discovery credit for North America. But evidence shows that the Vikings were probably there much earlier. The difference was they didn't really ask for credit. They didn't go reporting it to newspapers, media, printing, things like that. They just were there, and then they were gone. So the next invader group you need to know is the Angles and the Saxons, and they invade England. So if you look at the map, the insert over to the right, you see Jutes, and then below that the Angles, and then the Saxons. They're going all the way over to England. Now, that's where we get the term Anglo-Saxon, and also the term Angland or England. Okay, and next, the last group that you need to know, at least on a map, are the Franks. So the Franks, they make up present-day France and Germany. If you look at the insert, you can see where France or Gaul during the Roman Empire was, and Germania or Germany today. So the Frankish kingdom becomes a blending of these Germanic tribes that have taken over the territories of the Roman Empire in the West, and they've built their own kingdom. So continuing on with the Franks, there's two things you really need to focus on. First, the Frankish kings used military power to expand their territory. The alliance between the Frankish kings and the church and increased papal authority and influence in Western Europe. And when you see that word papal, that's the Pope. Remember, the Pope is the leader of the Catholic Church or the Western Church. And as the Crazy Duck's saying there, the Patriarch is the leader of the Greek Orthodox Church or the Eastern Church. So the Franks are very tightly knit with the Catholic Church or the Western Church. Just to give you a little more context, when the Roman Empire existed, the Roman Emperor is the highest authority. The Pope is there, but he is not as powerful as the Roman Emperor. But now in this new Frankish kingdom, the Pope is the highest authority. He's the one who gives the crown to the Frankish kings, as we'll talk about in a moment with Charlemagne. So the Franks emerged as a force in Western Europe. They became very powerful. The Pope crowned Charlemagne emperor. What does that say about the Pope's power? Obviously, he's higher up than Charlemagne, right? Because he's giving him the crown. The power of the church was established in political life. Now, this is important because think about America. The church is separate from politics, from government, but not there. So classical Roman Latin was revived as a language of scholars. However, Latin disappeared in everyday use and was replaced by French, Italian, Spanish, and other languages. Most of Western Europe is included in this new empire. And so as you can see, I've highlighted this one with little asterisks. Churches, roads, and schools were built to unite the empire. This is a favorite for any type of standardized test. So three of the invader groups that you really need to focus on are the Angles, Saxon, and Magyars. So under social, religious, and cultural development, the Angles and Saxons migrated to England in the 5th century. So that's the 400s AD. There's another group called the Utes, which you don't really have to focus on, so lucky for you. But you can see from the map here, the yellow lines indicate the Angles and the Saxons are indicated by the red. So these are the areas that they went and settled. They have lasting impressions there. So the Magyars are probably the more difficult invader group to remember. Most people haven't heard of them. The key here is they came from Central Asia and they migrated into Europe by invasion, by force. So you can look at the map to the right and you can see that purple arrow showing where they went. So the Angles, Saxons, and Magyars, they're all tribal units led by chieftains. Their invasions disrupted towns, which caused trade to decline, and the Angles, Saxons, and Magyars all gradually converted to Christianity. So once again, just to reinforce, the Middle Ages begin because the Roman Empire is defeated over time by barbarians. And when I teach this, I usually relate it to a zombie apocalypse, as I had stated earlier. Because again, if we had a zombie apocalypse like in The Last of Us or the Walking Dead TV shows, we wouldn't have protection. So people would have to basically gather together to help each other, which we're going to see in the next video. That's called the feudal system. Feudalism is basically when there's a lack of protection, and as you learned in this video, trade decreases because of these invasions. Who wants to go out on trade routes when you risk being attacked by barbarians or zombies? As you can see here, this is my make-believe battle of zombies versus the Roman Empire, and you can see it looks pretty hopeless for the Romans. And while the real barbarian invasions didn't happen this quickly, it happened over hundreds of years, and it steadily picked away at the Roman Empire and weakened them until they couldn't protect anyone anymore. And just like in modern society, if we had some type of event like this, we would have to help each other. So this unit happens to be one of the two units that most students struggle with. For this one, a lot of it's vocabulary, and we're going to talk about that more in the next video, but also the maps. For some reason, students don't tend to like maps, but that's okay. We're going to review this more so you're more comfortable when you get to CSAs, benchmarks, exams, etc., standardized tests. So that way you'll be able to identify these things and be more comfortable with it.